I embarrassingly stood on the 14th floor balcony ready to jump. I almost took my own life. I was on that balcony, and there was one person that talked me off the ledge, literally. If you don't quit, you win. If you don't quit, you win.
Welcome to the Bucket List Life Podcast with Trav Bell, the world's #1 bucket list expert. Bucket List Life's mission is to help you get off the treadmill, stop Groundhog Days, hack your habits, and live a regret-free life. Because we know life's way too short not to live your bucket list life. So please welcome your host, Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy.
Hey bucket listers, welcome to another episode of the Bucket List Life Podcast. And I am so keen to get into today's discussion with our amazing guest, Britnie Turner. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Troy.
Oh my God, where do we start? One, how is it being a new mum to baby bear?
Well, he's the best kid in the world, thankfully. I had a horrific, terrible pregnancy that was miserable every single minute of it. And I'm sure that because a lot of people lie about how awful it can be. But I had the most wonderful, sweet, kind little boy that is just the joy of our life and super not fussy, and it's the best.
Oh my God. Well, it must be because it's got something to do with the awesome parents that you and Jeremy both are. And I text Jeremy, I've Instagrammed Jeremy the other day, and we go back and forth. A bit of banter. We've become good mates now, and he's a legend. That every time I see your baby, it reminds me of Carlos from the baby in Hangover. Because Jeremy's always got your son strapped to his front with sunglasses on, just like the Hangover movie.
With little aviators. He's got sensitive eyes. His daddy made sure that he put in a built-in pickup line in his name. So before we were married, we pre-agreed, which I think I thought it was a joke, that all of our kids' middle names would be Danger. And so his legal middle name is Danger. And it's Bear Danger Locke. Mate,
I tell you what, if that's not a man's name, like a manly man's name, I don't know what is. The dude's come out as a lumberjack, like yeah. Danger Locke. My God. Oh, look. Where do we start? Like, I ask this kind of cheesy question at the start of every podcast, but it gets the flow going. You travel a lot, especially with aerial recovery, and we're going to unpack all of that. When you go into some countries, they give you they give you a little incoming passenger card, and you got to write your occupation on there, right? What the hell do you right, as your occupation being such a multifaceted, fascinating person that you are?
Oh, gosh. I normally just like real estate probably would be what I write. But the answer for here would be, I'm a force for good entrepreneur. I found my calling at 12 years old when I found out about what sex trafficking was. And I realized the blessing that I have on my life, that wasn't my situation. And though I grew up in a very America poor, family, not poor, but, we were not rich. And though I didn't grow up with that silver spoon in my mouth, I realized that I was born into a country that had enough rights in it to where I wasn't somebody's slave. I wasn't somebody, abuse cushion, I guess you could call it. And with that comes a level of responsibility and a gift to be able to go give. And so I thought maybe I'll be a missionary. That's going to be a wonderful way to go across the world and help the people in the most desperate need, try to affect trafficking as big as I possibly could. But then I went on these mission trips every single year from 13 on, and I was like the worst missionary because I'm just angry. And I'm angry because I'm seeing kids dying of starvation, and I'm seeing kids dying of waterborne illness, and I'm seeing the level of abuse and the lack of women's this, and like just so many really amazing worthy causes. And a lot of them are things that we've already figured out as humanity. We've figured out clean water to a point that it's not going to automatically kill you in a lot of places. And we've figured out to the point that, people struggle with obesity a lot of places. We've figured some of these things out as humanity. We could be spreading these solutions. And so my best way to do that was to create different force for good entities and then empower the forces for good. So that's the very beginning of what.
No. And that's the thing. I love what you say there is I'm not the worst missionary ever, because you come back from these missions angrier and, I guess that's been your driver. And let's start at the top and then unpack, reverse engineer, so to speak. Serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, humanitarian philanthropist, CEO of Aerial Recovery, and as a precursor, Caribbean island owner. And they all dovetail into each other. Where do we start? Do we start back in Costa Rica at your mission trip?
I think that's the best way to start. There's a lot of people who are searching for purpose. I think that's everybody. We all want to know what our purpose is in life so that we can live a fulfilling and happy life. And my real wake-up moment was 12, but then when I witnessed a little girl that had been so horrifically sexually abused when I was 17 that she couldn't speak, I was done. I saw something I couldn't unsee. And I like to share with people that your purpose is going to take you to heightened levels of anger or sadness. And that's not that you're supposed to live an angry life. The point is it moves you. And that's a thing called passion. It absolutely moves you. And many times your why will make you cry. A lot of us have heard that. And so that anger that I felt moved me in a way that I remember getting on my tent that night, getting to my tent that night, getting on my knees and saying, God, whatever it looks like, I want to do something about this. And a lot of times when we see things that frustrate us, you have three options. Number one is to just become an angry hater activist that sits around and talks crap online, board warrior. Or you can ostrich and put your head in the sand and say, la, 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 it's too painful, I can't hear about this, which you're a lot. And number three is to raise your hand and say, God, use me. In my lifetime, what can I do to help end this suffering? And it's really cool to ask people really deep questions because everybody's called to different things. I think we're all part of this beautiful divine plan, and we all get to play different pieces out. And your action in that area is an expression of the love that connects us all and getting to act out that love. And so at 17, I was rocked. And I remember like my whole life flashing before my eyes and just not caring about buying anything, owning anything, or pursuing anything for me more worthy than the calling, which would help end the suffering for this little girl.
It was that strong.
It was so strong. And
wow.
I was on my knees. I prayed that prayer and I heard loud and clear, I'm going to take you out of the mission field and I'm going to put you in business. And I was like, no.
So the vehicle of missionary wasn't doing enough for you at that point in time, and you had to go, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to take charge of this thing versus the vehicle that you were on? Or
honestly, I audibly heard God say, I'm going to take you out of the mission field and put you in business. I know it sounds weird. It's the only way I can tell the story because it's how it happened. And I fought it immediately. And, the first time you actually hear God, you're like, no. So I didn't want to do it. My entire identity, all my training, everything was around going on these really hardcore, austere missions all over the world, training with special forces. And, I thought that business was boring and stuffy and cold. And I'm not a person that just thinks, I'm not a pretentious person at all. And I thought that it was just this, ugh. And I don't know if it's the training from Disney or what, where the rich people are always the bad guy. But I thought all rich people were bad guys back in the day. And it's probably because I grew up poor too. So I didn't want to be a bad guy. I want to be a good person. And so I thought that was a very weird thing to hear. And I went back and I was going through this survival school, and I had an Australian survivalist actually leading it, but it also had a leadership element to it. And this guy came into our class and talked about really the essence of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he said, did you know you can buy a house with no money down? And if your mortgage payment is $900 a month, but you rent it out for $1,200 a month, that $300 is a thing called cash flow. And I'm like, go on.
Tell me more.
And he said, do that 10 times and you can live in Africa being a missionary and you don't have to ask anybody for money. And I thought, okay, if I really want to do something big, then it would be really nice to not have anybody be able to cap my calling. And I want everybody on this call or on this podcast listening to this to be able to really write that down in your life. Like, may no one be able to cap your calling.
Wow, that's so cool. Unpack that for a second. No one to uncap your calling.
You don't want somebody to be able to cap your calling. You don't want somebody to be able to cut you off from making your life's work impact because, they don't like you anymore or they ran out of funds. And all of your impact in life is just tied to this one donor. Or I've met a lot of women who have stayed in abusive relationships because they're going to get financially cut off. So if you are listening to this, then you have so much access that if you start learning and organizing the things that you are learning, you can start putting them together and you can create wealth. You absolutely can. And you can create wealth as a force for good. Money is nothing more than an expansion tool of the heart. So I was super worried that when I got rich, that I was going to become a bad person. Money changes you, Money makes you a greedy person. I'm like, money doesn't change you, it reveals you.
Yeah.
When you stop having to kiss somebody's butt and fake nice, who are you really?
What's that thing between because most people are in jobs, I dare say jobs that they don't like, with the amount of disengagement, that figure in America, especially over there, 80-90% of people are disengaged. What do you want to say to those people that are disengaged, who feel trapped? And you're talking about independence and mission and this sort of thing. What can they do?
I think that's a great question. Number one, happiness is an inside job. No job via actual business is going to make you happy. And the entrepreneur journey is way harder than having a job. So if you're unhappy in your job, you're going to be really unhappy as an entrepreneur.
It's going to get worse.
Right now. It sucks being an entrepreneur half the time to majority of the time. It's really hard.
There's glimmers of hope. There's glimmers of hope sometime.
No, I'm not saying not to do it. I'm saying that if you are just living unsatisfied and unhappy, all that is you probably not taking the time to define what success looks like, to define what you want your life to be like, to define your purpose, to have any clarity. So you wouldn't know if you were successful if it bit you in the butt. You would have no idea. And so I find most people are living a visionless life. And there's a scripture that says, where there is no vision, the people shall perish. So have a vision, just like so much of what you teach. What do you want your life to be in all these different areas? That's why I love what you teach so much. It's really vision casting. And then having people put action plans to going and doing it versus just living to where everybody's telling you exactly what to do. So I'm not against entrepreneurship. I'm against not having vision because it's again, I started my career living in my car and working for free for 9 months. I made this group $400,000 in real estate deals. I was homeless, terrified in the winter in Nashville in a convertible.
Well, hang on. I've got a question here. Living in car, learning real estate. Yeah, that's so hardcore. In a convertible in Nashville.
Yeah, in a grocery store parking lot. And guess what? I found a way to be happy.
Did you say 9 months?
Yes, I found a way to be happy. So I really don't have a lot of grace for people. I'm unhappy. Find a way to freaking be happy. Find a way to be grateful for whatever you do have. Find a way to start learning and gleaning from wherever you currently are. And I tell people all the time, work to learn, not just to earn. So if you're in a job, find a way to, again, pull resources to make yourself worth more money, make yourself more valuable if you want to stay there and get paid more. And don't be demanding and entitled. That's a terrible not like recipe for the opposite of success. And so many of my generation was just like, I'm going to demand this and I'm going to just, no, nobody owes you crap. You get to go create value and money follows value. End of story. Always will.
End of
Be a blessing.
podcast, people. Done.
Be a blessing. You will be blessed. Be a blessing. You will be blessed. So I just have had I've had to have a very humble attitude in my approach to all of this because 21-year-old girl in the South in construction, nobody wanted to listen to me. Nobody wanted to invest in me. Nobody wanted to be my crew. It was an extremely hard thing to pull off, but it was working to learn, not just to earn, and I got ahead.
So you're learning real estate. You're working for someone else for a wage and commissions. And how do you do then your own project?
I made nothing, zero. I didn't work for a wage. I didn't work for commission.
Oh, free. That's right.
I worked for free.
Just to learn.
I had to learn. There's no other way to learn. So the real story is figured out real estate's my way. I want to flip enough houses to be able to buy an apartment complex before I turned 26. So I had a good amount of cash flow enough to build my own orphanages and do my own rescues in Africa. Like that was my plan. 2007, 8, 9, boom. Worst real estate economy in the history of mankind. Everybody I tried to learn from and work for was screaming, get out of the market now. It's the worst time in history. I don't watch TV. So I didn't actually know there's a global economic meltdown going on. I finally get offered this job, but I have to move to Nashville, Tennessee through this crazy set of circumstances. And my family, again, wasn't talking to me for almost 2 years because I didn't go to college. And they're like, you're an idiot. Why are you moving so far away? And I'm like, it's God. He's opening the doors. Moved to Nashville. I took a job that was $600 less than the minimums on my credit card payments that I had been surviving off of while everything in my life failed that I ever tried to do. And within 2 months of moving up there and working for this big real estate investor who sold courses, I get fired. The day I get fired, I went up to these two guys and said that were very loud about all the deals that they were doing at a conference. I said, can I work for you for free? And so again, even though I had nothing, had no idea how I was going to survive, no idea how I was going to pay my bills, and I pay my bills, it's that humility. You got to find a way to give first. And end up working in this creepy basement doing short sale paperwork for hours every day. Finally got a chance to meet with one guy that was actually out there flipping houses. He said to meet him at 5 a.m. I'm there and I'm not a morning person. And I had $1 and I bought muffins. I brought food. And he wouldn't talk to me the whole day. I sat in the car just listening to him yell at subs on the phone, call, just sat in the car listening. And I just took notes on all his problems.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, if I could make his life easier, he might let me ride in the car with him again.
Adding value.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, he finally looks at me at like 8 at night and he's like, why do you want to do this anyway? And I told him how I want to rescue kids. And he's like, I'm going to make you the best. So for the next 9 months, I'm secretly living in my car and coming in. This is only like I slept only 4 hours a day. So it didn't matter. I was not in there very long. And I just worked my butt off. And his problems this week where he couldn't find enough deals. All right. I learned how to find deals and I found him deals. He didn't have enough investor money. All right. I went and found him investors. He didn't have enough crew. Went and found him crew. Didn't have enough subs. All these different things. And I just made his life easier. They made, like I said, over $400,000 over that 9 months off deals. But I learned how to do it. And I was the best. And I learned in the worst economy in the history of real estate.
No way.
And so this excellence was forced. If not, you fail. It's over. And when he's like, all right, you're ready to do this on your own, everything that could possibly go wrong. I got robbed. I had gangs try to come in my houses. I had like flood zone, like all these terrible things. But by God, I made $40,000 on that first deal.
So the first deal is a flip?
Yeah. First one by myself. I actually made
$40,000. What sort of property was that?
Single family home in a really rough neighborhood in downtown Nashville. And I think we sold it for $137,000. And that house right now would probably sell for $750,000.
No way. Always the way, isn't it? And then so you turn that profit into the next, you flip that profit into the next deal? And, what was the come up in terms of the property, sort of property numbers through those years?
I went from doing that first house by myself to becoming the biggest rehabber in Nashville over the next year and a half.
You're kidding. What does that, what does that mean? What?
Like 150 houses, not like thousands, but that's a lot of rehabs.
You flipped 150 houses in a year and a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. Which sounds easier than it is, because they were a lot of work in all different parts of town and all different crews.
It doesn't sound easy, Britnie. No, you got that wrong. It doesn't sound easy. There's 150 houses in a year. So
yeah.
You bought 150 houses. You made them better in a year.
Year and a half. No, I did 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not 150 at one time.
No, but
it was a lot. Yeah, it was hard. And I did it mostly, I think, all that first year and a half, all with private money.
Where do you get private money for stuff like that?
The Real Estate Investors Association is the best place to find that. So
wow.
I started teaching how to drive for dollars, how to find deals. I started teaching anything I knew how to do at that time, and then built my network and built my crews and it was good. It was a lot. And each one of these rehabs takes a little piece of your soul, because they find a way to kick your butt. I don't know if you've ever managed a construction project, but they are difficult, and you have got to learn how to run a crew too. And I'm extremely sweet, very compassionate person.
There would be a dark side. I'm tipping that you've developed a dark side.
Never meaner to meaning, but you're not getting over on me either. So.
Don't poke the bear. So you've done 150 houses. Now you've got a cushion of money.
Yeah. Doing rehabs. And then I go back to Africa with my mentor, witness how he had developed an orphanage. And then I helped them develop the second orphanage. And in the process of doing that, we picked an area where parents were selling their kids for $25. And it's just super poor village. And every 3 months, these traffickers come through and say, all right, who wants to sell your kid?
You're kidding.
And so, I'm not kidding. You have no idea how normal.
I can't believe we live in the same world. It's so.
They flip
I won't
them.
Swear.
They flip them to Americans for like $300, and they're like, "This can be your slave for life. Do whatever you want with them." And it's terrible. But anyway, so we picked this village, and after just tying up the land and designing the property using all this like new stuff that I had been learning, we came back a year later, and the whole area is like surrounded by all these little businesses, like touch property line, and we're like, what the heck's going on? They're like, the Americans are investing here. It must be something valuable about this land. And that's when I learned that real estate development can create hope in hopeless places. Because the first vision was to have enough cash flow to be able to be financially free to go do missions full time.
Right.
Then I learned that I could shift regions and wipe out poverty at its root. And the desperation, the terrible things that level of poverty and desperation does in a community, like having to sell your kid, which hopefully nobody on this call has ever had to make that terrible decision before. But they didn't want to, but they had to. It was awful. So the light bulb turned on, and I started asking, how do I scale, life-altering transformation through real estate? How do I start taking hopeless places and making them economically self-sustainable? And let me practice in my own backyard so I can come back and do this at scale. And so over the next year and a half, I became the biggest infill developer in Nashville. And then I started picking up worse and worse and worse areas as a test project.
Infill, define that.
Infill means, so I bought up like 50 acres of downtown Nashville property, which turned out being really smart thing to do. Didn't know that.
This is the stuff that no one wanted to touch?
Yeah, stuff nobody wanted to touch, but it's in the middle of other things. So infill means you're not like buying raw land and developing it. It means you're buying land that might have something else on it and you're optimizing it. And so definitely not the biggest developer. There's definitely people who bought a lot more than me. But mine wasn't about making money or even being a developer. It was about practicing transformation.
Wow.
I've always had a passion for really helping to heal, elevate, and transform places, and also with people, but I didn't know how to connect the two. I became a Deca multimillionaire at like 24 years old, which was awesome. That was never the goal. The goal was to like learn the thing. And then it was to practice this transformation. And after just a couple years of doing that, when everybody made fun of me, I couldn't get lenders. I mean, constantly, there's so many figure out I'm on to something. But people were so mean for the longest time. They're like, you care too much about people and animals to ever make a profit. Da, da, da. I ended up winning Forbes' 6th fastest growing woman-owned company in the world in 2016.
Really? I did not know that.
And I asked God, I was like, all right, I'm really good at doing this in America because I'm not a bragger. I'm good at 2 things. I'm really good at helping find the highest and best in people and places, and 1 karaoke song. And that's about it. So I'm really not good at a lot of stuff.
What's your go-to? Well, we've just taken a left turn there, ladies and gentlemen. What's your go-to karaoke song? I might have seen that on the socials. What's your go-to?
Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You.
Holy hell. Wow. And you hit every note?
Yeah, I do.
Wow. What's Jeremy's?
Jeremy has a really masculine song. You'd probably guess it. It's Under the Sea by the Little Mermaids.
Oh, dear. And ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Locke, who has been on the podcast before, ex-special forces, military, man's man.
Sniper, 260 pounds of solid muscle.
Yeah, inspiration for my man bun right there. Hey,
Under the Sea. And he has a whole dance with
I'm going
it.
to remind him of that, I think, later today. And I love a rendition. So the vehicle is real estate. You can go into areas and let's fix up home before we go further afield. So you're taking this land, you're developing, putting properties on it or not. What are we doing with that land?
So I've done everything from single family homes to entire developments to commercial to different rezones to office to multifamily. And what's funny is in my very beginning of my journey, I said, all right, I want to flip enough houses to be able to buy an apartment complex before I turn 26, because anything after 26 is old, I thought.
Wow, where did you get that from?
Of course, at 18, that's what you think.
Yeah.
And I bought my first apartment complex 2 days before I turned 26. And I forgot I said that. I was like, oh my gosh. So I got really good at being able to shift any region. And there's really not a spot that can take me that I haven't been able to figure out how to turn around. I know how to vision cast in that way and execute it. And one of my favorite things that I just want to impart to your listeners, you guys should write this down, is you will always be paid for the vision others don't have.
You will always be paid for the vision that others don't have.
So you can go into this really ugly, blighted, broken areas. And I walk in, I already see it done. I'm like, nope, it's done. It's like, you can't even change that picture, man. I'm so trained now. It was not natural. This is very much a developed skill. So for people who don't think they're creative or don't think that they're a designer, I don't have any of those bones in my body, but I did enough of them. And it was painful enough for me to figure out how to do it quickly. And I could just go in and see it done. Like, oh, nope, that's how the stairs will be. That's how the windows will be. That's how the, whatever.
I've got this vision of you. I've got this vision of you in your cold convertible in Nashville, living in your car with this like vision board. Is that true? Is that a real vision?
No, it's absolutely true. And I would sit there and, oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I listen to the Black Eyed Peas. I'm a bee. Someday I'm gonna be. And the reason I take the time to sit down with people and always get them to start with their why, and I don't like having to say it that way because it sounds so cliche. I make people write their eulogy. I make people write the story of their life when they are dead, and they look back on their life, and you get to see, what was that story really about? I believe you have people do that too. It's so powerful because it's a way to force the vision out of their head. And if you're really honest with yourself, your soul can write that story for you. Your soul already knows what you're supposed to do. And it's not about acquiring stuff. It's not about what your little community thinks about you today and what awards you win. You're at the end of your life, if you're getting ghosted up at the back of your funeral home, listening to what they say and what you want them to say, you start living an intentional life, which is why you and I get along so well because we both share the same thing. And I don't tell people go start a business. It might not be for you. Don't go just get a job. Don't just go marry somebody. Don't just go on that trip. You're living in a world full of really good marketing and a lot of shoulds, and you got to get all the should out of your life.
Yeah, true.
You want to do with your one chance on earth.
Hey, tell me, have there been any pivotal books, coaches, people, or any other situations that, or interactions where who've been those real pivotal points where it's helped you further that mission even more, further cement, your vision?
I've had a lot of pivotal books and mentors in my life, but it's really been going on the trips and seeing things firsthand that has given me a perspective that's given me an edge in life, because I've had countless obstacles. I've dealt with turds suing me just because I wouldn't go on a date with them, like all kind of just weird stuff in my life, and haters and people trying to kill me for taking away their drug dealers. And then you get into the anti-trafficking world, and there's been all kinds of obstacles. And I've never been the right gender or age to do 80% of the stuff that I have done in my life. And I didn't let that be an excuse. I had to be like the duck where you're paddling 10 times harder into the water. You look all smooth, And that's my encouragement to anybody listening to this that might not be the right color or gender. Stop whining and asking for more rights. Just go prove that this is possible and do it with love. And then people will not think it's so impossible for the next person that looks like you. You're the one. You're the one called to be it and to do it. So perfect.
And what was the vision around? Yeah, what was the vision? I mean, was it the real estate? What was the vision around? Let's get to the Buck Island. How did that come to fruition? And what was the vision for that? And we'll kind of reverse engineer that to a certain extent too.
So I went all in so that I could eventually go overseas, because that's like my heartbeat to rescue kids. Like, I've never cared about real estate. I'm grateful for real estate, but I'm not like, I just love houses. Let me just,
yeah. I'll get 100 doors. Yeah.
Not that doors person at all. Not that flip this house. Look, I do not obsess over the vehicle. I appreciate the vehicle though, and I'm dang good at it. So I asked God, I was like, how do I go from doing this in my own backyard to doing it overseas? And I heard loud and clear, start on islands. And I was like, what? What the freak does an island have to do with Kenya or, wherever? And I didn't understand. And so the best I could try to figure out on what the heck that message meant was, after all the trips I had been on at that point and the suffering I was seeing globally in all these areas, I see that suffering over there, but I happen to live in America. And in America, there's all these asleep people drifting through life and wasting this beautiful access that they have. And it was so weird that one of the greatest and most abundant nations in the world is also the most depressed. And so these two things don't compute to me.
Not this just America either.
No, but this is what I was in. Why is this nation that's walking in abundance, similar to other nations that walk in abundance, also the most depressed? And so I said, all right, well, if we're going to tag team, deal with all these issues instead of just one, how do we essentially wake up the forces for good across the planet? How do we get them to start seeing how incredibly powerful they are? And if you work your whole life and you just help one, obviously that's enough. How many more could you help if you start activating into your purpose by having a vision for your life, doing things that light you up like you teach, having a life worth living? And I believe that true fulfillment comes when you walk in your purpose. And it's not like about being a slave to that either, because it doesn't feel like slavery. It feels like you do anything to stay doing that. And so how do you use an island to wake those people up? What distracts them from their calling? Okay, well, obviously depression. Well, why are they depressed? They don't understand they have a purpose. Well, how do we help them with that? How do we help them get away from disease? Nothing's more distracting than a body that's sick. Okay, how do we help them optimize their relationships? How do you start to heal from the inside out? How do you start loving yourself so that you can actually have an authentic connection to any other human being on the planet? You can't give what you don't have, Mother Teresa says. Can't give from an empty cup. So how do we use an island to do all these things, which sounds so crazy, right? We freaking did it. And it was like the weirdest vision ever. But almost all my businesses are that way, where it's like, all right, here's almost like a God download of something that's not popular yet, because social entrepreneurship was not cool when I first started. Now everybody,
Yeah.
Yeah. But everybody made fun of me and called me a tree hugger and you should be a nonprofit. And so that was the vision. And I kept trying to get an island off of Haiti. I was like, all right, it's definitely going to be in a developing nation. And I was actually invited to hang out with Richard Branson at an entrepreneur event. And when I was there, I asked him, what's the hardest thing about buying an island? He said, well, you can get an island for cheap, but it takes decades and hundreds of millions of dollars to actually bring one to life, because they're put that infrastructure on. It's just extremely difficult. And so I, just to get it in my subconscious, decided I'm going to go look at islands. And because I was worth like not $100 million at the time, but I was worth a lot. But I'd only seen billionaire old dudes own islands. I just never seen it.
True.
I never seen it. And so it wasn't quite possible for me to own somewhere nice, like that. In my head, like a missionary is going to live in a mud hut for the rest of my life. Like that's my. And so I had put this island on my vision board in the BVI, just this really beautiful one. I was like, someday when I'm 70, maybe I'll live somewhere as beautiful as this. And I tried to get a hold of the agent for 3 days. All right, if you're listening to this and you're an agent, answer your phone. You will be you'll be rich beyond your wildest dreams if you just
you're
answer
an agent
your
and you're selling islands. Answer your phone.
Just anybody, any agent, just answer your phone. You'll make money.
Not hard.
Anyway, and so I finally got a hold of her, and she's like, all right, everybody who goes to Necker wants to buy an island. Why do you want to buy one? And the year before, I had spent over 100 hours mapping out how you'd use an island to change the world.
Wow.
And again, you'd wake these people up, how you'd have this healing element, how you'd elevate, how you'd come together, transform this, Really, it's a place to transform yourself.
So you wanted it really as a headquarters for transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nothing from an ego point of view, like I must own an island. It's just, it became more of a hub kind of mission.
Yeah, and you should only do the ego decision if you are a multi-decade billionaire. It's way too hard to do an island if you're doing it for ego purposes and you're not ridiculously wealthy. It's just really hard. And so I tell her my vision, and she didn't say anything. I'm like, okay. And then after a couple minutes, she finally unmuted herself and she was screaming. She said, you're supposed to buy this island. You're supposed to buy this island. I was like, Ginger. And she goes, no, Buck Island. And I go, hate the name. Like, terrible. I'm so terrible. But it was so bad. I was like, okay, whatever, lady. And so she sends a helicopter and I go fly. The agent did. I go fly over the different islands for sale, and I end up landing on Buck Island. And weirdly, the truck from my vision board starts coming down the road to pick me up. Be real careful what you put on your vision board, people, because again, sometimes your soul sneaks something in there just so that it can be confirmation.
Oh dear.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Oh, you're going to love Santorini. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So this truck comes and picks me up, and I was like, So I'm walking around like wearing my most billionaire looking outfit I have. And because islands are super exciting. And I was like, just and long story short, it hit me. I was just pretending. I was just having fun. I was just putting myself where what it was like to ever potentially buy an island. And it hit me like a lightning bolt. You're supposed to buy this island. And I was like, what the? I get it under contract, and I start, I knew I was going to have to get investors to actually.
Was it already had sewage and plumbing, and did it have the house on it already?
Buildings on it, and that was the only difference between that one and the other buildings. The only properties I looked at was that one actually had a building on it, which was just crazy. So, and I didn't realize it had taken them 10 years to build what was there. 10 years of in-day work. So long story short, I contract the island and I'm going gangbusters on fixing it up so I can get the right investors. And I was married at the time. And we'd been married less than a year. He never worked, and it was weird. And it just started going south. And within a 3-month period, this person that I basically ran down the aisle to marry, I wasn't with him that long, became really abusive and also tried to destroy everything I'd ever worked for. Canceled the insurance on the island, told the sellers we're not buying it as soon as our marriage counselor said he had to actually pay for anything. And I'd already put a couple million into fixing it up because it had been not lived in for 5 years except creatures. And so 3-month period, the strongest hurricane in the history of mankind in the Atlantic destroyed the British Virgin Islands 3 weeks after he canceled the insurance. And I ended up losing almost everything I had ever worked for in that 3-month period. And
I think I watched a video of you guys cleaning it up afterwards, and that was horrific.
Yeah. It was so hard. I mean, I don't want to dog him publicly. That's not the point. But the person who's saying they love you is also saying these really horrible things. And I didn't want to live anymore. You know, it was not like, oh, I lost my stuff. It was that everything never worked for it. I was working 18 to 21 hours a day up until that point before I got married. And it's always been for purpose. I didn't go party in my 20s. I didn't go do anything crazy. I just worked so that I could have the means to be a blessing, and it was all gone. And so it's like 70% of my staff quit at the same time. It was just,
wow.
I got sued by 2 people. My mentors left. It was just a compilation of suck. And
so Buck Island at that point in time, you probably had another name that sounded like Buck for that island at that point in time.
I wasn't upset at the island. I was upset at God for letting me marry somebody like that, for letting me go on that path. And I was actually weirded out before I got the island. I was weird, like, why would I be put somewhere so nice?
Yeah.
I thought I'd be somewhere that needed more help. But then the day of those hurricanes, I figured out. So I believe sometimes that you're pre-positioned to be a blessing. And though I had lost the island, you'd poison the cellars, there's all kinds of stuff, I still went back to try to find my friends' bodies and be a blessing. I'd never been there, never been to a disaster zone before that, besides our house getting hit by a tornado when I was 10. And I was told, how are you going to help? You're not trained. And I didn't know, but I just went and figured it out. And that same week that I landed, we're helping people get evacuated. We're bringing aid
and
in.
And this is happening at the disaster zone you're talking about. Is this on your island or is it other places or just through the Caribbean?
Right next door, Tortola, main island right next door.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've been there. And so was that the kind of impetus for aerial recovery?
It absolutely was. And so
Wow.
I'm watching, I'm wanting to quit on life at the time. Like I embarrassingly stood on the 14th floor balcony ready to jump multiple times. I almost took my own life, was on that balcony, and there was one person that talked me off the ledge, literally. And I bring that up, not something I normally share publicly, but I want you guys to know, what are the consequences? What's the ripple effect for the rest of the world if you do jump? Because in those moments, if you're ever somebody that's dealt with that, you truly believe you're doing people a favor. You truly believe the world is a better place and nobody's really going to care, and you're doing the world a favor by leaving. And I want to tell you, you're not. And I know we've all heard it's darkest before the light, but if you don't quit, you win. If you don't quit, you win. And you got to keep finding at least one thing good, because that gratitude can pull you out of darkness, can pull you out of depression. And I remember my little system for getting myself out of the spiraling darkness was to have to write on a whiteboard. I've got a whiteboard always in my house. One thing going on in my life that was good. And I remember writing down, my mom loves me. That's freaking it. Or I have legs, because if I didn't have legs, I would wish I had legs.
So it's gratitude that, starting with the smallest of gratitudes, writing gratitudes down that was a major, simple but major tool in your life at that point in time. I dare say it still is.
No, it's a wonderful tool. It's absolutely something I still do. And my husband and I now, we do gratitude back and forth to help us get out of negative spirals. I call it happy stacking because it's so easy to spiral down. What is good in our life? Oh, we have nothing. No, we have a roof over our head. We have a beautiful baby boy. We have each other. We have our this. What do you have? Because your survival brain, which is a really low level consciousness, will try to protect you by helping you see all the dangerous pitfalls and focus on them so that you don't get killed. But when you focus on them, you lose all your joy and you go into anxiety and fear and depression, all these things. And the point is to be able to transcend those moments, have an aerial perspective on your life. Remember, life is not this loss or this win. It's so much more. And so don't get lost in it. And anyway, that hurricane, I've got such a longer story, but that hurricane ended up being the biggest blessing in my life because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have ever met Jeremy. And Jeremy and I really fell in love at the next disaster site in the Bahamas when I watched how, after years of being annoyed at how much everybody sucks at.
There you go, guys. So if you want to meet your soulmate, go to disaster recovery zones and, but you've met each other on a values level that, cannot be matched. Him being military, you being you, was meant to be. And so what, aerial recovery was born then?
It was born so I had a nonprofit after the disaster, which was a couple of years before I met him. But when I saw him jump into action and go into mission mode and start again, after better. Years to these things, everybody's not good at actually helping with the need. They're just like, or they're whining about the environment, or they're scared, or it's dangerous. With these veterans, they're built-in security. They've got years of training, millions of dollars of training, and they're just like so good at it. And I was like, wow, do you have any friends? Yeah. Any friends that would like to help with this? Oh yeah. And it was so life-giving for him.
Yeah.
So it's this like compounding purpose thing to where by him being able to go and save lives, it saved his life. And it showed him that there's so much more purpose for him even outside the military, because we have since recognized the skills that these heroes have, but then also recognizing they've had a lot of trauma. So how can you take the time to heal so you can continue to be an unstoppable force for good?
There you go.
Because we were able to take them on several missions, but then they get knocked out of the game, either their own health, their PTSD, their relationships, something's gone to hell in a handbasket. And we created Heal the Heroes. Jeremy likes to say he's hero one. It's me as an entrepreneur taking notes on all his problems and saying, how you're so gifted. How do we actually help repurpose this and get through these obstacles so that you can keep doing missions? Because he started rescuing kids that were, there's these witch doctors that do child sacrifice in Uganda. And, within 48 hours of him hearing about this guy that just beheaded 6 kids that week, he was off to go take this guy down. He didn't kill him. We always arrest him. Everybody asks. So he's so dang good. And I'm seeing, as an entrepreneur, we always find what are the issues and what are the solutions? There's tons of issues in the world, and these veterans and first responders are the solution. So the fact that in America alone, one is killing themselves every 84 minutes.
Just a completely an untapped resource, unchanneled resource, right?
Well, let's put the two together and solve all these amazing problems. So how do we wake up the people with the resources, which are you guys listening, and how do we repurpose people with the skills? Because there's dreamers, donors, and doers. Let's put them all together and let's actually go freaking save some babies. Anyway, that's how we operate. And we've rescued over 8,000 people in the last 36 months. It's super effective. All led by our heroes that thought their purpose was over, and a lot of them didn't want to be here anymore.
So mission of aerial recovery and the mission of Heal the Heroes within that. Just quickly give us the 1-2 sentences on that.
Oh, it's not sentences. It's 4 words. Save lives, stop evil.
What was that again?
Save lives and stop evil. That is what we do.
Boom. And the Heal the Heroes, of which I am blessed to be a contributor to over the last year and a bit since I met Jeremy, and you guys asked me to contribute, and I love donating my time, energy, whatever I can to those guys and girls, and just being a resource, to lean on. I'm just stoked that my stuff resonates, and to my little contribution from over here in Australia towards your veterans to help them heal, to then go and be first responders within aerial recovery and so forth. Yeah, it makes me feel real good. I'm very proud of that.
Well, thank you very much. You've been a huge blessing. So we have a 12-week program, and Trav is one of our keynote speakers to these heroes. And a lot of them have never taken the time to dream. They've been handed a mission their whole life, and Trav comes on and just blows their mind on what's possible and totally different new ways of thinking. And we're seeing the results of his teaching in their lives and in their families. I get texts all the time from the wives, the kids. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to thank you again for taking the time. We've never paid you to do it. We've never, you're just constantly being a blessing, and we're hoping we're not abusing the relationship.
Oh, no. Oh, no. It's not at all. You're always on that, and I tell other speakers this as well, and thought leaders, you got to be doing the free and the fee. That's just how it works. You got to be contributing. If you love what you do, just help people wherever you can. And the law of reciprocity will figure itself out. So how do you stay on your path, and where are you on that path, your mission at the moment? The big mission, because you're ticking boxes, and you some would say mission done, mission accomplished, but you've probably got a bigger one. You've probably got more to go, right?
We're trying to pick up 14 countries right now for anti-trafficking rescue operations. The coolest thing about the Heal the Heroes program is it takes many times special operators, and throughout, after the year-long healing program and during it, we train them to become humanitarian special operators. And so they go do missions with us for child rescue all over the world. They do disaster response rescue missions all over the world. And then we also train them up enough to be able to go be leaders, security, and mission planners for other orgs. Because it's not about the aerial name or flag. How can you orchestrate good? And I really want everybody to write that down. How can I use my life to orchestrate good? Whether I ever get the credit for it, what's the ripple effect that you are creating through your lifetime? And so Water Mission is doing a great job. Global Empowerment Mission is doing a great job. World Central Kitchen. How can we give them, our highly trained heroes, as leaders for being able to conduct those missions all over the world that we may or may not be doing? I mean, with Global Empowerment Mission, I think we've distributed over $3 million of their aid for them.
Unreal.
They've got the aid, we've got the people. Let's put them together. And World Kitchens, the goal is to serve humanity. And I've been so irritated at learning some nonprofits out there think it's like competition. If your goal is to serve humanity, let's do it together. And there'll be no ego and no pride in that approach. So anyway, we are very much operating from what a Green Beret model is, which is the American Army Special Forces, and it's by, with, and through, the best way to get something done. So we work by, with, and through. And if that's with another org, let's help them. If it's with the local people on the ground, let's do whatever's the best way, not an ego approach. And
So
that's
it's not
been
just error recovery, till we, yeah, okay, that's interesting. The by, with, and through is the Green Beret Special Forces
yeah.
way of getting things done. And that's what you've adopted with area recovery. Even if you've got a partner through other people, it's not about flying your flag. You're happy to fly other people's flag if you're getting the job done.
Right. So for child rescue missions specifically, who cares if it has our name on it or not? Did the kid get rescued? Let's do whatever needs to happen to get that kid rescued.
Very cool.
I'm going to die someday. And that's the power of writing your eulogy, guys, is not to live morbidly, but to remember, I'm going to die and I will be forgotten eventually. If people on this call don't know what Alexander the Great did, we're all eventually going to be forgotten.
True.
So you might know a little bit of what he did, but we're going to eventually, nobody cares. It's time. So what did you orchestrate good? What ripple effect did you start creating? How can you start living intentionally? Those are the questions I want you to start asking yourself, which is what you already teach so well.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Tony Robbins, I heard him ask this question once. What is your humanitarian goal? And I'm like, wow, humanitarian goal. I guess that leans into legacy, right? So what would you say your humanitarian goal would be, your legacy, Britnie?
Oh my gosh. Save lives, stop evil, probably.
And have a vehicle to continue.
If it is one, then it was worth it. And if it's many, then I'm going to go for that, because I would wish somebody would do that for me if that was if I was in the situation, I would wish every day that somebody would get past their past, get past their fears, have some courage, and find a way to do something about this horrible evil that's going on. And that's what I think about every time I want to quit, which is a lot, because this is not easy.
So that, like the cheesiest podcast interview question ever is, what's your advice to your 21-year-old self? I think you just gave us that. Is there anything else you'd want to add?
My real advice to 21-year-old self is don't worry so much. I'm definitely somebody that's not brave, but I'm courageous. And if there was a tagline on my tombstone, it would be, do it with diarrhea. And
what does that mean?
It means I've been really scared to do most of the stuff I've ever done. And I had probably some bowel issues because of that, because it's been so freaking scary.
Nerve-wracking.
And I've probably done most of my career with diarrhea because it's been nerve-wracking, but I still did it. I didn't feel confident in doing it, but I still did it. And then your confidence comes later. And so if I could encourage all of you, doing great things or doing big things doesn't necessarily feel good in the beginning. It doesn't like, I'm so confident it's just going to work out. No, you might be doing it terrified, but keep moving forward.
It's the action, though. The action, it's motion that creates emotion.
Yeah. Well said.
Do you think everyone's got a purpose?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even the person that's could be sleepwalking through their life, and I guess what's that quote? No choice, no problem. Some of the happiest countries on earth, and you would have been to some of them, don't have a lot of technology, don't have a lot of choice. But yet, Bhutan, Vanuatu, these sort of places are, according to the happiness index, the World Happiness Index, some of the happiest people on earth. What do you say to that?
I don't think it's a choice that makes them no problems. I think it's finding the good and seeing what they do have versus focusing on what they don't have. And I think in those same countries, they're not living in a comparison culture like we do, because they're not trying to compare and seeing the gap and the lack, because they're not being marketed to the same potentially. They're just grateful for life. They're grateful for a beautiful day. They're grateful for their children. They're grateful for the cardboard toy truck that they made out of garbage. Like they just are happy and find a way to be happy and see that good versus focus only on the bad. And
yet we've got so many choices in Western world that it creates issues, right? And how do you block out the noise and concentrate on your mission? And as we wind up here,
I have to dummy proof it for myself. which was why I named everything Ariel. So I have every company I have, and my nonprofit is called Ariel something. And that is, again, keep the big picture in mind, keep the big picture in mind, keep the big picture in mind. Remember, you are part of this beautiful divine plan. Life is a gift. It's about perspective. And everything you're just talking about is your life, your joy, your fulfillment. Everything is going to come down to your perspective, because if you end up a quadriplegic, you might not be able to do some of the things on your bucket list. But what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? And abundance follows gratitude. There's basically a universal law that says if you're not grateful for what you've been given, why would you be given any more? And so if you're wanting more in your life, guys, start writing down that dang gratitude. It sounds so cheesy to do the gratitude journal. It friggin' works.
It does.
I don't know how planes actually work. I do not personally understand the science. I haven't taken the time to learn it, but I still get on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do the thing. It works. Make the vision board. It works.
It does work. It does work. And I think that's perfect. Look, Britnie, we could go on and on. Love talking to you. What do you want people to do? What's an action? Someone's listening or watching to this Bucket List Live podcast with you. They could be a donator. They could be a follower. What do you want people to do, and how can people connect with you?
The easiest way is probably BritnieTurner.com. It's every resource, from being able to come to the island and see it and experience it for yourself, or getting involved in the nonprofit work. We need all hands on deck. Everybody has a place. If you're called to this kind of work, then we probably can use you. If you want to sponsor or nominate a hero that is struggling, can be from anywhere in the world, that's healtheheroesinitiative.com. And so we'd love to connect with you, love to continue to support the great work that you're doing.
And aerial recovery, suss all that out. We'll put it all in. Yeah, put it all in the show notes.
Let me say that again. BritnieTurner.com and aerialrecovery.org are the best ways to connect to us and to continue doing this great work if it's resonating with you.
Love it. Love it. Guys, get around Britnie, Jeremy, the rest, their businesses, and the amazing work they're doing. Thank you so much for taking the time, Britnie.
Thank you for having me. You're amazing, amazing followers. Hopefully they're as great as you are.
Thank you. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bucket List Life podcast with the world's #1 bucket list expert, Trav Bell. For more great content, go to www.thebucketlistguy.com. We'll see you next time.